It's your guys is 8:50, right? Yeah, you guys should see, it actually snowed just recently. In fact, why don't I show you guys? It's pretty cool. Just take you out. So we're just gonna hang out for a little bit. We'll do the official, like, start talking about ADHD stuff at like probably 你们的晚上9:10. See if I can get. I want to show you guys the snow. So we'll just kind of hang out. We'll talk about what we want to go over when it comes to ADHD. But until then, let's see if I could get this. It's kind of hard to show you. Do you see that? See how it's snowing? Yeah. So it's pretty cool. Alrighty. See if I can get this back up here. BCO3TW says hello. Well, hello. How are you? How you doing? See if I can get this. My sister's actually coming too, because she's got ADHD as well. So it'll be a good, like, opportunity to see kind of the differences between ADHD in boys versus ADHD in girls. We'll be able to kind of cover some of those things. See if I can get this situated here. But everybody can hear me good, right? Because like last time I did this, the internet was cutting out quite a bit. Okay. Yeah, that's normal. Okay, so let me see if I can get this up here maybe, so you guys can see. All right, Unakai said hi. Well, hey, how's it going? And then we also have Lai Mingfeng says hello, hello. How are you? Yeah, it's good to see you guys. So, what do you guys want to go through when we talk about ADD? Once we get like start talking about ADD, ADHD, do you guys want to talk about the difference between boys and girls with ADHD? Do you guys want to go through some of the like 头脑的哪些部分被影响吗? Do you guys want to go through medication? Would you like me to talk about, you know, how I knew I had ADHD as a kid? Just let me know. We can all vote about it. Give me thoughts. And what we can do is talk about what you guys specifically want to talk about. Let me know. Yukiko says, I'm an ADHD too. Well, awesome. We're in the same tribe. It's good, huh? It's good to know that there's other people that have it too. I'm in it. Annie's in it over here. My sister Annie. She's got it. My mom has it.
Pretty much her whole side.
Yeah, and then the whole side of my mom's family, everybody has it. Her dad had it. My grandma had it. They're both passed away though. And then all of her brothers and sisters have it too. It's really genetic. Lai Mingfeng said education. Okay. So talking about, do you mean like education, like how to help kids with ADHD, how to educate them, what you need to do differently? Let me know. And then Yukiko 10 said, I need your tip. Okay, ADHD tips. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll make a little list over here so we can keep track of the stuff. So tips, education. Okay, and then Xiu 1527 says 想知道症状和生活影响. We can definitely go through that. So symptoms, how it affects daily life. Absolutely, we can do that. Let's see. And then I've got Yukiko 10 says 我用高强度运动控制自己. That's actually a really good one. There's a lot of, your brain will release the same amount of chemicals as if you were taking a pill. So there's a lot of non-epinephrine. That's a chemical that helps your body feel alert. There's a lot of dopamine, dopamine, that'll pop out when you work out. So that's a really good way to deal with ADHD. And then Lai Mingfeng said, yeah, how can we help the kids? So I'm seeing more education stuff. So it's starting to look like how to help kids. So how to help kids, maybe let's do like symptoms, like what it looks like, how it affects life. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Do you guys, let's see. We could also probably go through how it affects, you know, you see I can't even say it in the morning. 都是头脑的发展比较不一样. If it's a person with ADHD, we can go through that too. Kent says, oh wait, actually, no, you didn't say anything. I read that wrong.
But hi, Ken.
But how are you? Yeah, so we can talk about how to help kids with ADHD. My thing fell down there. Whoops. But yeah, we can go through that. I'll just hold this real quick. Yeah, my thing fell down there. Yeah, so we can go through some of the things like that as well. So how many people in the chat have ADHD? A lot of people? Okay, Jojo NE6JN says, 跟大家打招呼. Oh, hey, how's it going? Unakai 3811, 这是会遗传的吗? Yes. Yes, it's genetic. There are some cases though where people can get it from brain trauma. So there's like if somebody hits their head and it messes up, because ADHD is right here. It's the 前额质. It's the frontal part of the lobe, the prefrontal cortex. If somebody gets hit in the head and damages it, it can cause ADHD. But there's some people that they're born just with this part of their brain is smaller. It's usually on the right side of the 前额质, and it's really small. And so it's not as good as a normal person's. And your 前额质 is what controls your ability to plan, your ability to think ahead. So yeah, it's really, really genetic. In fact, it has, I think it's 80%, it's somewhere between 70%, 80% inheritable. So if one of your parents has it, you're probably gonna have it. At least one of the kids will have it. Let's see. Michael says gave me a really nice sassy pink hand. Hello. And then Yukiko says, I have difficulty understanding English sentences, and some medical studies indicate that ADHD affects our hearing. Okay. 如果你听不懂的话，你可以叫我再讲一次，或是说哦，你刚刚说的那个部分有点不太清楚，我可以重复一下。但是我用英文会比较自然。我觉得如果用英文，你会比较有我要表达出来的感觉。Okay, but ADHD with hearing. So here's the thing. People think it's in the ear. What's happening is the brain will be focused on the wrong thing. And so when a parent's talking to a kid with ADHD, they'll be thinking or really focused on something else, and their brain will completely cut off what the person's saying. This happens to me all the time. And what'll happen is I'll come in mid-conversation and I'll just put together what people were saying, and usually it's wrong, and it's usually something really funny, and then they have to tell me what they were actually saying. But it's more about what the brain's doing, it's not what the ears are doing.
Yeah, I've seen that with Mom all the time.
Yeah, our mom does that too. Same thing.
Seems like she has bad hearing, but she doesn't, because she can actually hear like a whisper from far away. But yeah, she misses a lot of stuff that's going on just because she's like focused on her phone or something else.
Yeah. Yeah, if she's looking at her phone, she's thinking about too many things. At the same time, yeah, my mom will 漏掉很多东西. Okay, let's see. Oh, Huang Ziyun says my 2 kids have ADHD. Awesome. That's good. It makes life interesting. Oh, 前额叶. Thank you, Yukiko. That's the right way to say it. So it's not 前额叶, it's 前额叶, prefrontal cortex. That's how you say it in English. Lai Mingfeng, you taking the medication to control it? Yes. Yes, I do. I take meds. Some people don't. And not everybody can use the same kind of medication. We can talk about that too if you want. But for me, oh my gosh, it changed my life. Meds helped me so much. Yukiko 10, thanks, with a sassy fish. All right, well, you're welcome. And then Papio Nini, are you in the US? Yes. Yep, I am in the United States. I'm in Utah. I'm actually at my grandma's house. You guys like that buffalo back there? And then Joe, what's that character? Xian Ma, sorry if I'm saying that character wrong. Xin, DHA vitamin D3 可以帮助控制 ADHD 吗? It helps a lot. Sunlight, but the vitamin D3 has more to do with your circadian rhythm. 就是你睡觉的固定率. Like it's if you go to bed at the same time, you wake up at the same time. Vitamin D3 is what your body produces when there's 太阳光. And having a consistent sleep cycle is extremely important for ADHD. And so the D3, if you're in Taiwan and it's raining all the time and it's dark, your body has a harder time knowing when it's daytime and when it's nighttime, and that's really hard on people with ADHD. ADHD is usually linked to a lot of sleeping problems. And so D3 helps. The best is to go outside though. Go outside and let your body know it's time to wake up. Yeah, but vitamin D3 does help. It doesn't cure it, but it does help. And then Yukiko 10, so I need to take Ritalin and then watch this live. Well, here's the thing. You don't have to take meds. Some people have different reactions. Annie doesn't take Ritalin. She takes a different kind of medication. It depends on, because ADHD and ADD, it's a spectrum. Some people have it more severely. Like I'm about as bad as you can get. So I actually do the best with Adderall, but because Taiwan only uses Ritalin, I just have to use Ritalin. But I work the best with Adderall. But some people will use non-stimulant medication like Strattera, and it works really good. I've noticed a lot of women do better with Strattera, but it depends. Everybody's different because there's different levels of ADHD. And then I have, let's see, Yukiko 10, D3 is not very useful to me. However, there are many subtypes of ADHD and everyone's situation is different. Exactly. There's a lot of different variants within ADHD. And so you got to be aware of what helps you specifically. And then Papio Nini, I'm so jealous of your language skills. Well, thank you, but you could do it too. You definitely could do it. Then we've got Dakara. I'm guessing that's Japanese, Dakara, right? 请问 ADHD 当时年龄的智力测验是否会偏低？因为分心导致测试不准确。That's actually a good question. Well, I would say, like when it comes to the testing when I was a kid, they were still just barely starting to understand it. And so, yeah, I'm sure that people would get missed, especially with girls more than boys, because girls don't present ADHD the same as boys do. And so what you'll see is they tend to be quiet about ADHD, and they sometimes they even do good in school, but their heads are constantly wandering, and it's really stressful for them while they're in school. And they usually don't find out they have ADHD until they go to college. That's when it really hurts, because they had a parent or a sibling that kind of took care of everything for them. Well, not took care of things, but helped them remember. They had all these like systems in the home, but when they leave, it really hits them. Annie kind of had that experience. She didn't know until she went to school, right?
Yeah, college was really hard. It took me 10 years to finish.
Yeah.
So, like, that alone should tell you all you need to know.
But you had really good grades in high school.
I did.
Like super good grades, like never had problems. My grades are horrible in school. So, and I loved going to college. That was a lot easier for me. Let's see. And then Xu Weiling. So have you ever taken traditional Chinese medicine to treat the ADHD? I've gone to, I went to one guy, he helped me like do some stuff. I mean, it was interesting. For me personally, it didn't really help that much, but there's a lot, again, like everybody has different stuff that works for them, and it's definitely worth a shot. If you're somebody who's like, I really don't want to take meds, like I just feel like meds are bad or whatever, then maybe that's a route you can try and look at. Zoe Zhuang says, my mom has ADHD, like to talk nonstop, despite she's now aware her condition. How you control yourself or tell others when they're out of control? That's a good question. So that is a problem with ADHD. You're gonna have, it's because your qian e has got problems, right? And so it's hard. It's almost like, you know how you have a car and you're driving and you have brakes to stop? The qian e is like your brakes. So it helps you think before you say something. And ADHD doesn't have very good brakes. And so people will say things without thinking, or they'll talk nonstop. It's a tough one. It depends on how severe the ADHD is. But if it's yourself, what you can do is kind of make an SOP. And it's hard. It's really hard to do. But one thing that helps is like say 2 sentences or say a couple of things and wait for the person to respond. If they don't respond, it's time to be done with what you're talking about. And this happens to me all the time. Annie knows I go off on tangents all the time, and I struggle with it. But that's something that can help. When helping remind someone that has ADHD, that's tough. And here's why. ADHD has, one thing that a lot of people with ADHD has is called RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And it's because when kids with ADHD are really little, they're getting yelled at all the time. They're being told what they're doing wrong. And it's 5 times more than the average kid. So what that means is if you have a normal kid who has gone throughout the day and wasn't yelled at or corrected at all, a kid with ADHD has at least been yelled at 5 times. And so what it ends up happening is it makes them like have really low self-esteems. And so they get really sensitive to any kind of criticism. And so what you'll notice is when even like little things, if you say like, you criticize a person with ADHD, they haven't learned about their ADHD and they're not taking meds, they haven't learned how to regulate their emotions, they'll usually have like a way intense overreaction. And it's because they're so sensitive from being corrected all the time. So what you can do is probably humor, I would say. Find some sort of joke. Or you could say what they're saying is interesting and then remind them that we need to go do something else instead. But the goal for the person with ADHD should be they should learn how to do that themselves. It's hard. It's something I still struggle with, but it's something that they should be doing themselves. And the way they can do that is by saying it out loud. All right, I'm talking too much. Other people are in the conversation, or you're probably not interested in what I'm saying, or you could say, oh, well, I said too much. Anyways, what's going on with you? By saying it out loud, it actually re-engages this part of your brain, and it allows you to switch tracks and let other people take over. Okay. Yukiko Tan said, yeah, ADHD is a lifelong condition, but my professor said I can choose to take medication for life or exercise for life. Yep, you can choose either one of those things. Or you can do both. Xu Weiling said, or received treatment of traditional Chinese medicine. Oh yeah, acupuncture, there might be something to that. Huang Ziyun said, 我的儿子每天忘东忘西，抱怨let me grab that. 拖拖拉拉，有什么方法可以帮助他? Okay, well, when it comes to remembering, like helping a kid remember, so one of the things with ADHD that's really affected is short-term memory. Now, short-term memory and working memory. So long-term memory is like you remember what you, the 1 year that you did something fun with your friends. That's long-term memory. Working memory and short-term memory is remembering what you're doing. So for example, I go into the kitchen and I'm going to make a sandwich, but I see something else that distracts me and I forget that I'm going to make a sandwich and I do something completely different. And so because working memory is affected in kids, you have to have a routine. So if you do the same thing every single day at the same times with the same cues, they don't have to engage their impaired working memory. So for example, if you have the habit of every time I take my backpack off, I put it in the same place, and you'll have to practice it with them. You cannot just tell them because it won't process. They have to do it because the back part of the brain and the front part of the brain in ADHD isn't as connected. The back part is doing, the front part is planning, and they don't have that connection as well as other people. So you have to practice it with them. And so every day, okay, when I take off my backpack, I put it in the same place. If I need to put my homework, I always put it in this thing. I always do my homework at the same time. And obviously plans change, but the more consistent you can keep it, the easier it will become for them. And they won't be as tuo la la da, because the more you have the habit, the less energy it takes. And with ADHD, kids with ADHD have less energy. It's about a fourth less. So think of it like a yotong, right? In a car, they are about 1/4 less. So they run out of gas really fast. And if they run all the way to 0, it takes a long time to recover. So it's really important to have habits, because when you have habits, the less energy you have to put into it. And this works for everyone, but it's really important for ADHD. So for example, think of it like, let's say you want to lose weight and go to the gym. Going to the gym is hard, right? Like just driving or taking the J-Yun to go to the gym is hard. And then you have to freaking go lift the weights at the gym, and you have to do a bunch of workouts. So all of these things are actually a bunch of different habits. And a kid with ADHD, it would be focusing first on, okay, how about we just go to the gym and get that down to the point where that's not hard anymore. And then you reward yourself. Now we have the gym down and we don't have to think about it. That's not going to take any of our gas out of our tank anymore. Okay, now we're going to focus on making sure that we do one of each workout. Okay, and then we make that a habit. So you slowly stack the habits on. So with homework, it would be, okay, let's work on making sure we bring our homework home. Get this down first. I don't care if you do it, but we got to get this down first. Now, anybody think, well, he has to do it. Okay, do one thing. Do one question on it. And then make it a huge deal that they remember their homework. And you do it at the same time, and you remind them at the same time. And this is going to be hard because a lot of parents that have kids with ADHD probably have ADHD too. So it's something to keep in mind. All right, so, but yeah, if you slowly stack habits, that will help your kids not procrastinate as much, and it will help them not forget things as much. Okay, let's see. Zoe Zhuang says that's very helpful. Thanks so much. Jade said, 那你现在还是会忘记一些事情吗？ 像是每天需要做的 Absolutely, I do. But I do have some coping mechanisms that I've learned to deal with that. The forgetting doesn't go away. And it is, and the older you get with ADHD, the more life throws at you, right? The more responsibilities you have. So you'll get to a point where you've got everything down, but then you get married. There's a whole other thing there. Or you have kids. There's a whole other thing there. Or you have a job, or you have to get a new job. You have to get used to a new environment. Anytime there's a big change like that, there's usually going to be more things that are forgotten. It's all, and that has to do, but there's things you can do to get around it. But yeah, I forget. I still forget things, but I'm a lot better than I was when I was a kid, for sure. So let's see. Jade said, not, oh, we already read that. And then Jojo NE6JN said, say out loud of what again? Okay. So this is out of a book called Thriving with Adult ADHD. It's actually something I've read a couple of times. I still like to read a little bit every day. But it says that if you are distracted. So for example, let's say I'm going to do my homework, right? Or I'm going to do something for work. And then somebody talks to me and it says something I'm really interested in. That can be really distracting. I could talk to them for 3 hours and that's the end of that. And I could be in big trouble with work or with school or whatever. What I will do is I will say out loud, oh, that's so interesting. That would be really fun to talk about. Hold on to that thought, but I gotta get what I'm doing done first. And then what I'll do after, this is the important part. Okay, I was talking to them, but what I need to do is I need to do my homework. And the first step to do that is I need to look at, like I'll start doing the first step in the process. What that does is it'll guide my brain back on track. It's super useful. It's something that I've just barely started using like just the past year, and it does help. But that's a really good one to do. Let's see. All right. Kent said, 压力对 ADHD 来说是一种助力吗？还是会让他的大脑无法思考? Yeah, 压力 is kind of hard for ADHD. And this has a lot to do with emotional regulation. A lot of people, when they hear about ADHD, they're thinking about, oh, 他很乱啊，很活泼, 很好动, or 忘东忘西, right? That's usually the first thing people go to. What they don't realize is it also that shacha that we were talking about is also their emotions as well. So if a person with ADHD is in a bad mood, they have a hard time getting themselves, comforting themselves and getting out of that. And so if you put pressure on them when they're little and they don't have the skills to regulate, it just makes things worse. They'll feel negative emotions and they can't pull themselves out because they don't have as good of breaks, and it'll actually make them more forgetful. They'll actually forget more. In fact, that's why beating kids with ADHD doesn't really help. Because self-esteem comes from our ability to solve problems. But if it's something that they can't control, like forgetting something, and you beat them or you yell at them or give them pressure, and they keep forgetting it, and they can't solve it, then that makes them start to believe that they're just a horrible person and that they deserve to be beaten. They deserve to feel like this. And so it makes them feel like they can't do anything right. And so what you need to do instead, because remember how we talked about kids with ADHD are yelled at more than the average person, they need a lot more praise. And I know a lot of people think that that's like baby parenting, like spoiling a kid, but it's so important for a kid with ADHD. Anything that they do right, it's a big deal. Because what that does is it encourages them. Every time you say, oh, good, that was awesome. I can't believe you did that. I know that was really hard for you. Because what that'll do is it'll set off dopamine in their brain. And they'll go, that wasn't that bad. I can try it again. And it makes them want to try and do it again and want to build that habit more. And so being positive with ADHD is actually a lot more helpful. But the goal, the ultimate goal, is to get them to do it by themselves. So, because they can't always have people praising them all the time, right? They have to be able to, but it starts with the parent, right? So they hear it with the parent, but it also, over time, you're going to start to say, yeah, that's hard. What are you going to do? And start to kind of guide them through, like, oh, well, yeah, I'm having a hard time, but yeah, I forgot that. But I didn't forget it that one time. I think if I do this, then I think it'll work out. Then maybe I'll be able to turn my homework in. And then you praise them. Oh my gosh, that's a great idea. That's perfect. And what that does is it trains them to regulate their fear, their anxiety by themselves. That's the ultimate goal. Because again, kids with ADHD, they still have to do everything everybody else does. You just have to use a little bit, a different way to teach them. Okay. So how to, and then I have Xu Weiling, how do you encourage kids with ADHD to control their behavior by themselves based on your experience? So there's multiple things that we could do. One thing that you can do is make sure they're sleeping. That's a huge part of it. They got to be sleeping. If you're not sleeping, you're going to have problems. Make sure that they're eating a lot of protein because their brains are going to need it. And I would avoid anything with red dye in candy, especially in kids. Candy is a lot like alcohol. Like, it has about the same effect as drinking a lot of alcohol does on a normal person in an ADHD brain. Doesn't mean they can't eat candy. Just know the next day they're done. There's not a whole lot they're going to be able to do, and it'll take a couple of days to recover. And then once you have those things down, I would say praise anything that they do right, and always encourage them to try again. That should be the biggest like thing about it. Like, making mistakes is fine. It's not making mistakes that gets us in trouble. It's giving up that gets us in trouble, right? So you should always be like, all right, get back on the horse. In English, get back on the horse means you got kicked off of a horse, right? You're riding on a horse and it 把你踢下去嘛. But the only way to ride the horse again is you just got to get back on again. Just try again. Okay, that didn't work. You have to disassociate failing, making it like 犯错跟我是一个错, right? And I think that's a huge thing. Is a lot of people 搞混 shame 羞耻 with 罪恶感. 罪恶感 is something that our body tells us that we did was wrong, and it's a lot like 痛苦, right? Like if we touch a hot stove, and it's like, ow, oh, that hurts. Our body's saying, ooh, that's dangerous. Don't do that again. But after we have that feeling, it's done. It's over. We don't have to focus on that anymore. Shame is you touch the stove and you say, I'm such an idiot. Why am I such an idiot? I'm such a worthless piece of crap. That doesn't help. That makes things worse, especially for ADHD. And so it's, okay, you made a mistake. You forgot. That's all right. Let's try again. Because they're going to have to do that for themselves much more than a regular person. They're going to have to be able to tell themselves, I'm okay, I can do it, because other people around them are probably not going to be able to understand. And so they need to learn that skill, and that starts with the parent. So that's really useful if you can encourage them, and then obviously setting up a schedule with them as well is just making sure you're doing the same thing every day at the same time and slowly building habits. Stop expecting everything at once. We're going to do this thing. We're going to get this thing down first. And then we're going to get this thing, and then we're going to get this thing. So it might take them a little while before. So instead of saying you need to have A's in all of your classes, it should be, I don't care what your grades are. We're going to work on bringing our homework home. Okay? And then once we get that down, then we're going to work on finishing our homework. Okay? After we get that down, then we'll start looking at which classes we're struggling with. And so it's slow instead of all at once. They can't do all at once. You're going to have to do it slowly over time. All right. Kent said, when I was a kid, my mom always said that I was not there because I've been so distracted all the time. And in my memory, lots of frustrations. Yeah, that's actually really typical for girls with ADHD. They tend to zone out. Now, in ADHD, there's actually 3 different types. So you have hyperactive. That's the 好动的那种, right? But there's also inattentive. and then there's combined. So inattentive is somebody that is, they're just not, they're kind of in their own little world, and you have to constantly, hey, you listening? Hey, that's usually, I bet some of you, when I did that, went, oh, that doesn't feel good, because you've experienced that before. But that's the inattentive type, and so that's really common. A lot of people interpret inattentive ADHD as not caring. And that's not what's going on. It's just that the brain is having a hard time staying on one thing and being able to come back in. So yeah, that sucks. I totally get that. So Zoe Zhuang said, just talking about the praise part, I found it helpful to use ChatGPT to tell me how good I am. That's a great way to build up your self-esteem. If you need to do that to build that up. And to make sure to point those things out. One thing you can do too is just write down things that you've done right. What have you done right? What are you good at? What are the things that people maybe have ignored that, you know what, that was pretty awesome that I did that. Even if to other people it's not a big deal, if it was hard for you, you need to praise yourself for that. That's awesome. And if you can slowly internalize that, it'll make you a lot better at handling things that are kind of painful. Shaniqua said, 所以绝对不可以吃红色素色的东西吗? It's not that you can't, just know that there's a price. So if they eat it, they're gonna be worthless the next day. Like they're gonna 发脾气. It's gonna be worse. They're gonna forget things way more. They're going to be more sluggish, more tired. So like it's not that they can't. Just you're gonna have to adjust your expectations, and it's gonna probably take 2 or 3 days until they get better from it. Because I don't like to think of it as like, oh, he can't touch this, or she can't touch this. It's just adjust your expectations. But no, yeah, it's gonna affect your kids for sure. Shu Wailing said, as the parents, how to face the children with ADHD cause trouble outside the home. So this is a really common thing with ADHD. ADHD, there's a side disorder that's called ODD. It's called oppositional defiant disorder. So kids with ADHD will either go 2 different routes depending on their personality. They'll either go, man, like, because everybody's yelling at them, they'll go, man, I can't do anything right. I'm just gonna do everything I can to make sure people like me. So they become a people pleaser. They oh, you want me to do this? Okay. And they'll just sacrifice themselves. They'll just say yes to everything when they really can't do it. That's one option. That's usually kids that aren't as disagreeable. In fact, we have uncles in our family. My mom, yeah, right? I'm that way as a kid. But the other direction is when a kid with ADHD has a high level of disagreeability, where they're more disagreeable, and they keep getting yelled at, they decide rules are stupid. And people that give me rules are stupid. And then they start fighting with people that tell them what they can't do. And they decide, I make my own rules. Now, kids that have ODD, it's not like, oh man, they're doomed. You can help them, and you have to use some different techniques, but it is something you gotta look out for, because if it's not taken care of, that's usually where a lot of people in jail, so like 65% of a jail is kids with ADHD, and they had ODD as well. So it's just something to look out. So if they're causing trouble outside school, what I would do is we would work on regulating our emotions. What that means is when you feel really angry, what can we do to slow down and stop before we do something we're gonna regret? When Annie was little, remember when you and Mandy were playing? Mm-hmm. What do you tell those guys about?
I always resorted to violence when I was little, and Mandy, my older sister, I guess she did like a cartwheel or a trick and kicked me in the face, and I immediately
不小心踢到她了. Like it was on accident.
Yeah, and I immediately went to like hurt her, and my parents were like, no, let's try to use our words. How are you feeling? And I said, I feel I want to hit her.
And so, but that is a classic ADHD reaction. It's like, I'm mad. So what you need to do, there's two really cool things you can do with kids that have ADHD. One is you can go, okay, I want you to look at 3 different things and take a deep breath and say the thing out loud. So for example, like we have this picture, I would go, painting, and then I'd look at the wall, and then I'd look at the couch. And by doing that, it actually takes my brain out of panic mode. And if I'm still in that, there's another one that I'll use all the time that's super useful. And it's you breathe in for 3 seconds, hold 3 seconds. Breathe out 3 seconds, hold 3 seconds. Breathe in 3 seconds, and you keep doing that. And the reason that this is so useful is because a lot of people will always say, like, take a deep breath. Well, if you're stressed out or in fight or flight mode, and you're like, it doesn't really do anything, right? Your heart is still racing. You still have all those chemicals in your brain. But when you breathe in deep and hold, and then breathe out and hold, it forces your heart to slow down. And then it makes it so you're not in fight or flight mode and reacting. You're able to think more clearly. And that's something that's really useful I use that all the time, like constantly. Like if I'm stressed out or if somebody's saying something to me and I'm scared I'm gonna say something rude or do something, I'll start to do that. I'll look at something, breathe. I'll do 3 different things, and then I'll do the whole breathe in 3, hold 3, breathe out 3, hold 3. It's super useful. That's a really good one to help. So it's like that kid, he said I was dumb and I wanted to punch him, and say, okay, well, why don't we practice? Okay. I'm gonna be that kid. You're dumb, you're stupid. Okay, what are you gonna do? How are we gonna handle this? Okay. Pick 3 things, take a deep breath. So what they can do is do that. And if they tried it and it still didn't work, they still need to be praised for trying it. Because it's gonna take a couple of times to get it right, because this is kind of a habit. But if they try to do it, it's like, okay, yeah, all right, we're getting there. You'll get it. We'll eventually get this, but that does help a ton. All right, so let's see. 语义，我弟弟有去学空手道，跟巴西柔术，想说可以让他过动症变得好一点，不要这么争不下来，结果越来越严重。So that's what's interesting. Exercise does help. It's really helpful for ADHD. So that by doing karate and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, that would help. The problem is it's back to that regulating emotions, right? We've got to learn how to stop, slow down. Because if you don't have that and you taught them how to punch people better, well, yeah, if they lose their temper and punch somebody in the face, that's
impulsivity.
Yeah, because with ADHD, you get impulses. So you think of something as 想到就做. That's ADHD. So you got to learn how to stop before you say something, before you do something. Let's see. Chun AQ Laboratory. ADHD 孩子常常会被打骂，因为都讲不听，不仅仅是小孩，身边的人都会失去耐心，也会感到挫折。我们都不知道该如何帮助他们。Well, I think that's huge. And honestly, one thing that drives me nuts with people that do have ADHD, they always want to make everybody change around them. That's not going to work. Like, one of the harsh truths is nobody cares, you know? Like, people care, but it's also really stressful, especially for people that don't have it. And so the goal is hopefully that we can help kids learn how to do the things they need to do despite their ADD or ADHD so that parents can learn with it. But it is helpful if you're their family or their friends and you understand that it's a little bit harder for them, but they do need to learn those skills. They need to learn how to control their emotions. They need to learn little mechanisms to help themselves remember. Medication is something that they could do too. That's the thing, is ADHD is not an excuse. We don't say, oh, okay, I have ADHD, so I don't have to do anything. That's not what having ADHD means. Let's see. 爱你爱我 said 跟大家打招呼. Hello. And then Jade said, if you write it on paper, it can help you remember something you need to do, like a to-do list. Yeah, to-do lists are useful. They're really useful. I use those a lot now. It is, and actually, what like crossing it out or having it where it says like if you have like a software on Google Sheets where it has like a yes or no selection, it'll actually make your brain release a little bit of dopamine, which will make you, it's so when you cross it out, it's the same thing as a parent saying, oh, that's awesome, good job. And so it helps the person feel like, oh, okay, I'm moving in the right order. I'm moving in the right direction. In fact, one thing that a lot of people don't realize about ADHD is the way that they do things, like the order you do things, actually makes a huge difference. So a lot of people will usually think you got to do the most important thing first, right? But ADHD has a hard time measuring how much time and how much effort a task will take. And so when you have a bunch of tasks, so like for example, eat breakfast, clean your room, or like fold your laundry, do a project for work, make sure to answer an email, call your friend. None of these are measured in an ADHD brain. They're just, oh gosh, all of these things are hard. And so what you do is you do the little annoying things first, because if so for example, little annoying things would be for like kids, that would be like brush your teeth, or clean your room. That's the stuff that's kind of things that'll look, and so when they do that little thing and they finish it, it'll feel like they did a big task. They'll go, whoa, I did that. I could do more things. And then they'll want to do more. They'll start to get into a hyper-focus mode. So it's interesting because a lot of people are like, oh, don't do the little things, do the most important. But it helps them warm up their engine before they go in and do the other stuff. So yeah, that's something that can help a ton. Let's see. What do we got? Yeah, but writing it on paper is super useful. Alex said hi. Hey, Alex, how are you? And then Unakai said, 打坐或is that more 冥想 right? 打坐冥想会不会对 ADHD 有帮助? Meditation, yes, very helpful. It's super good. It's one of those things that helps with distractions, right? Especially kind of meditation where you're just supposed to have your mind completely empty. So when those distractions come by, it's learning how to let that go. It's practicing how to let distractions go in the brain and go out. It's really good for ADHD. And then Kent says, my son takes 利他能 to make him be focused, but the side effect is losing his appetite. Yep, that's exactly what stimulant medications do. Annie started taking, her medication is it's a kind of stimulant. She just barely started taking meds.
Yeah, so I have, it's not necessarily for ADHD, but it can help. But it's more for depression and anxiety. But the depression one is a stimulant, and yeah, I've had no appetite basically. It's kind of slowly coming back, but yeah, that is a side effect.
Yeah, so and that's something you get, and usually if you have ADHD, you'll have stuff like anxiety and depression too. Like one of the two, like I have all three, and ADHD is usually hooked to those other ones. But yeah, stimulants do take away your appetite. One thing that I had when I started taking meds is I just ate anyway. I learned how to just, you know what, I don't want to eat, but I have to eat. And over time, my body got, used to eating at the same time, and it would be like, okay, time to eat. And then I started getting hungry again. But yeah, it is something to be aware of. The other thing too is that might mean the dose is too high. It might not. It depends because everybody's metabolism is different. So if they're, if it's really high though, if the stimulants are crazy high, usually they won't eat at all. So that is something to keep in mind. But the best way to know if the dosage is too high is if when it leaves their body, like when the medication wears off, they get really, really like moody. They start to cry or fa pi chi, like really, like kind of ridiculous level. That's usually an indicator that the dose is too high. Okay, Shaniqua said, 所以要从小事情开始要求，不能一口气要小孩 小朋友做很多事情吗？ Yeah, the goal is we're building. We can't do you can't do it all at once. You got to build, okay? So here's this thing. We're going to get this thing down, okay? And then we're going to do this thing. Then we're going to do this thing. And what that'll do is it'll help them build their self-esteem. And there's going to be lots of praise along the way. So, okay, we got this down. Oh my gosh, I didn't even remind you today to grab your backpack before going to school. You did that by yourself. Holy cow. Good job. And so after that, okay, and then we work on getting the homework, finishing the homework, and then start slowly working on making sure that we can get better grades, But you can't do it all at once. That's too many tasks for an ADHD brain. Let's see. 我们小朋友 why I think it's Jewel, but I can't see the character, so I'm not sure. 我们小朋友有 ADHD， 并且在服药前后有极明显的差别，但是服药也有一些食欲不振的副作用。Yep. So it's something to keep a look at. But the hard thing with kids is because their brains are still developing, they don't understand that I need to eat. And so and what's interesting is even without meds, as when I was a kid, I wouldn't eat. Like my mom would have to remind me to eat. I don't have that problem now, but yeah, as a kid, that I would be told that all the time. Like, dude, you got to eat. Don't just skip meals. So that even without meds, and that part of that's hyper focus. But with meds, yeah, they'd be like, I don't want to eat. What you can do is find something that they like that's healthy and super easy to finish. So for example, like a smoothie, like if you make like a smoothie and put like fruit in it and then put like protein powder in there as well, and then maybe give them some sort of, I would do either like a little bar with carbs in it, maybe, but just something that's easy to finish so that they can get it done, that they can, it's like, I know you're not hungry, I know. And I know it's hard that you can't eat right now. How about you try and drink half of this smoothie? Because a lot of the time too, is it's not even it's getting started that's hard for ADHD. If you give them a smoothie, say, try and drink just half of it. A lot of times they'll finish it. But it's the getting started part that they're like, ooh, this tastes good, and then they'll finish it up. That's a good way to get them to eat. But yeah, the easier it is to finish, and it's not like, you definitely don't want to give them something where like it's really hard to eat, like crab, right? Like that is the worst thing, because it's so much effort just to get this much meat, so you want to give them something that they can swallow and get down pretty fast. Let's see, Huang Ziyun, how much of a negative effect do TV and video games have on ADHD children? Is there a recommended time limit or frequency limit? Yeah, so ADHD has higher levels of addiction than other disorders. So yeah, they're gonna keep playing until the sun comes up, but it doesn't mean that they can't play. Like, so for example, playing video games is totally fine. What I wouldn't recommend is they shouldn't be playing 2 different games at the same time. Like there should be, okay, you can play this one. You can't play this and be watching YouTube and watch the TV all at the same time. You can do one because you want their brains to be focusing on one thing at a time, right? But I wouldn't let them, like when it starts to get to like make sure they have time to rest though. Like if they're at school and they're done with their homework, make sure that they have a little bit of time to wind down. Because if you keep giving them homework and then they're doing homework until 7, it's going to take them about 3 to 4 hours before they get sleepy. And so if they don't have time to play video games or do something that they like for like an hour or 2 hours, they'll stay up usually at night. And that's not good. You don't want that. That makes the ADHD worse. But yeah, it's good to have a time limit for sure, but make sure that don't make it so it's like, okay, 10 minutes and you're done, because you want them to be able to like, okay, work time is done. But if they still have homework, they shouldn't be doing it. Everything should be done. Once everything's done, yeah, good. You can do whatever you want, because that teaches them that you're in control of your life. If you get what you're supposed to do, if you do the things you really don't want to do, then you can do what you want to do after. But again, because they're little, you do need to cut it off at least 4 hours before they go to bed, right? So, and if you can't do that, just make sure that there's at least 2, because they gotta wind down. They have to wind down. Okay, let's see. Shaniqua said, 但如果我已经赞美了，他却觉得不够呢？或者是觉得我不够不够真心。I think the more like consistent you are, the less it matters. You like, even if you're like, if you're consistent, that's the most important thing. It's not like, even if you're like, oh, I don't have, why am I praising them about this? Like, if you're consistent, what's going to happen is you're going to notice a difference. If you notice a difference, you'll become like 更真心. And the kid that has ADHD, the reason that they might say that is because they're not seeing themselves change. And so they think that you're lying. But if you're consistent, they get to see the results themselves and go, oh, I can do this. This isn't that hard. And then that'll allow them to believe you when you praise them, because they can see it in themselves. Ariel Cho said, have you ever felt any positives from ADHD? I feel like I can get super focused when something interests me, but also tend to lose track of time and forget to rest. Yeah, there are lots of advantages. Hyperfocus, what you're talking about, is one of them. I love hyperfocus, because when I get interested in something, and I can get interested in a lot of different things, I learn a lot really fast. Like, I really, really, really want to, like, I love that I can just zone into what I'm doing and just cut everything else off. Getting it to stop is hard, but I do love that about ADHD, because a lot of people, they don't have that ability. And if you can learn how to control when you when you hyperfocus and when you don't, it's so useful. It's honestly, learning Chinese all came from hyperfocusing for me. That was because I was interested in it. I thought it was so cool and so interesting. So that's like all I wanted to do. Selena Zhuang said, 在美国的老师对 ADHD 学生有比较多的耐心吗? Compared with Taiwan, yes. But it still could be better in the US. I think a lot of people have a hard time knowing what to do with kids that have ADHD, because they tend to pull the whole class back. I used to teach junior high in the US, and I would talk to other teachers. And we had this one student, his name was Colby. And Colby, all the other teachers would be so irritated. They would just talk about how frustrating he was to teach. And I would hear it in meetings. And Colby was in my class, right? And I remember before he walked into my classroom, he would just stop and just kind of zone out and go. And then he would walk in. He was getting ready to get yelled at. That's what he was doing. I know, because I used to do the same thing when I was a kid. And so I think a lot of teachers could have been a little bit more patient with him. And what I did was we separated him away from the other kids. In that situation, there was 2 teachers, so we had one teacher focus on one thing, and we could take the kids with ADHD. I would focus on them. And the smaller the group, the better. If you can't do that, they need to be in the front of the class. They need to be on the front row. You should never have an ADHD kid in the back of the class. They won't listen to a dang thing you say. But if they're in the front, you're moving. And so they're, oh, what's this? What are you talking about? And they usually tend to pay more attention and cause less problems. But yeah, it's the teachers in the States need to be better about that. Let's see. Unakai said, ADHD 除了遗传有可能是后天得到吗? Yeah, so if you have brain trauma, you can develop ADHD. I've met people that had concussions and it gave them ADHD. But usually, like, it's most of the time it's 遗传的. Okay, and then Michael Michael LASU 5391，是不是建议成人 ADHD 投入在自己的喜欢的事情，而不是强迫自己融入职场社会的期待呢？ Yeah, you should be doing something you like. You should not be in an office job. Well, you can do it, but you better like it. Or you better have a system that makes it so it's not as painful. You can there's lawyers with ADHD, there's doctors with ADHD, there's all kinds of people, but they are interested in what they're doing. But again, it doesn't mean you don't have to work. You have to work. You're just gonna have to use different ways to get yourself to do the things you need to do. Xu Weiling said, as the parents, how to help kids with ADHD to find the things they have hyperfocus on. Well, I think a great thing you can do as a parent is let them experience different things, you know? So like when I was a kid, we would go on camping trips. My mom told me to, I remember one year, she forced me to go snowboarding. I didn't want to go. I wanted to play video games. I think I was in 5th grade, and there was these coupons that they had that would let kids go snowboarding in elementary school for like really cheap. So my mom was like, you need to go snowboarding. And I was like, I don't want to go. She made me, I loved it. One of the coolest things my mom ever did, she made me go snowboarding, and I snowboarded all through elementary school and junior high and high school. Loved it. I still love snowboarding to this day. So that was one of the things where it was, I got to experience something new. Exposing them to different people, different teachers. You know, I think one thing is if you can find a way to help them regulate their emotions, the more calm they're going to be at school, and the more they're going to be interested in what's being said. And whatever thing they keep talking about to you when they come home, it's probably the thing they're hyper-focused on. There's this one guy that I really like. His name's Henry B. Eyring. And he's an economist. He's also like a leader in my church, but his dad was a famous scientist. And I love what his dad said to help him find what he was interested in. He didn't have ADHD, but I think it applies to people with ADHD. His dad was a scientist, and he wanted to make his dad happy, so he studied science too. And he went to his dad with this problem, and his dad had already helped him with that same problem like 3 times. He realized his son wasn't into science. And he said, Henry, what do you think about when you don't have to think about anything? Do that as a job. I think that's one of the best ways to help them find what they're hyper-focused. What do you think about when you don't have to think about anything? And usually, if it's talking about people, there's a lot of jobs that are about people. If it's talking about a video game, what about the video game? Is it the story? Do you like to tell stories? Do you like to analyze? Is it talking about the types of weapons in the video game? Do you like to organize things? Do you like to build things? You know, there's a lot you can find out from stuff like that, but it's what do you think about when you don't have to think about anything? And then let's see. Xu Weiling said, what action you expect and your parents can take when you were kids with ADHD? So my parents, they did good things, they did bad things, because they're parents. Every parent makes mistakes. I think one thing that my dad was good at was he let natural consequences happen. So when I was in high school, my grades were really bad, and it was looking like I wasn't going to be, And my mom was super nervous, right? Because she's got ADHD too. She's got the anxiety. She's thinking, and she was every day, you need to do your homework. You need to do this. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And my dad said, stop. Just let him face the consequences. If he doesn't be he'll go to summer school and he'll be embarrassed. What was interesting is when my dad let the natural consequences happen, he just said, this is what's going to happen. It's not going to be fun, but if that's what you need to do to learn, then and then he let me be in charge. And then I was able to get my grades up and get myself graduated from high school. So I think that's one thing is allowing natural consequences, but then also teaching. You're gonna help them build the stuff to remember. But by high school, I had enough skills at that point that he could do that. You can't do that with a little kid. I think one thing that was really helpful was my grandma just kind of loved me no matter what. I was at my grandma. I mean, I still come up to my grandma's house, right? Super good at just loving me regardless of what my grades were. She just loved me. She thought I was great. And that's really helpful for a kid with ADHD. Let's see. Which Enos Chun, which NFL team are you rooting for this year? I don't care. Now, if you ask my little brother that, he would give you a very detailed answer. He loves, we like every night he has football games on all the time. Like he watches all, like the screen is split into 4 different games. I don't know how he does it. He loves football. Me, in fact, when I was a kid, my parents signed me up for soccer. And instead of playing soccer, I chased a butterfly the whole time. I think that about sums up my relationship with sports. Now, I like to skateboard and snowboard. If you ask me about that, then yeah, I'm all about that. 小吉他绘本屋自然惩罚吗? Yeah, so natural consequences. Like, now again, you still have to be involved. You still have to say, if you do this, this is going to happen, but let it happen. And then when it happens, then you can, that wasn't fun, was it? What can we do to avoid that? And then what habits can we form? And then I'll help you form the habit so that we can avoid this in the future. 小吉他绘本屋 said 爸爸好厉害，妈妈会紧张，没错。Yep. That's something my mom struggled with. Anxiety was really hard. But again, she had ADHD too. Usually if the mom has it, the son has it too, because you have an X chromosome and a Y, right? And a lot of the brain stuff is on the X chromosome. And so a boy only has an X, has one X. A girl has 2 X's, right? So when most of his brain stuff comes from mom and mom has ADHD, well, he's probably gonna have it too. But you can get it from your dad as well. But that is a really common factor. Then Renesh 3538 said 跟大家打招呼. Yeah. Hello. How are you? It's good to see you. Yeah. In fact, what we could do, we're almost done. Oh, actually, holy cow. Look at the time. It's almost time to go. Do you guys have any other questions before we wrap it up? I hope this was helpful. I love ADHD. I think it's super interesting. But yeah, it's something that I think if we could sum it all up into one thing, it's yes, it makes life harder, but there are things that we can do, and it is a real thing, and positive reinforcement is probably the best way to help kids with ADHD. Oh, well, let's see. Enos Chan said, okay, serious question. Does being a missionary help you coping with ADHD or worsen it? It helps a lot. Going on my mission, like when I was a missionary, is probably one of the best things that's ever happened for my ADHD. So, and the reason I say that is because the schedule is the exact same every day. You wake up at 6, you work out, you eat breakfast at the same time, you study at the same time, you have specific things that happen at the same time during the week. And so by having that consistent schedule forced on me, it forced me to stick to something until I started to see progress. That's why I learned Chinese, right? The only reason I was able to hyper-focus is because we had a 固定学习中文的时间. And so over time, I started to notice progress, and that made me like it more and more and more and more, and then it made me hyper-focus on it. But yeah, oh my gosh, so helpful, so helpful. And then And then Shaniqua said, 希望之后可以看到一些老师整理今天讲的概念的影片. That'd be awesome. That would be way awesome. All right, guys. Well, I will see you later. But yeah, just if you have ADHD or if your kid has ADHD, just know you're not alone. And there's things that we can do, and you can have a good, successful life. You're just different than other people. That's all.